So this project, Escaping the Historicity of Form, has to do, I could say, about Dusan, sorry to interrupt, how I can change the slides?
I think it's to go down with the
No.
link here. Right.
Ah, okay, perfect, perfect.
Because it's PDF.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Ah,
Not
okay.
PowerPoint,
Okay.
pictures.
So the whole lecture has to do what are we doing with the past, and for archaeologists, there's Dusan. It's a scientific kind of matter because they take data, they know how to preserve, and it's of great importance how to preserve a monument, because we need to see when we see or visit a monument its distance from the past. But in architecture, even though we adore the past and the remnants of a building from the past, at the same time, we need to dwell, to use the building. So the questions of how to do this, it's a whole matter. And this, you can interrupt any time. I will be happy to be interrupted.
Similar project.
Ah, really? Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah, like, let's do it.
Yeah. I want to hear more. Discuss and discuss. So, because the specific project, the specific building for which I'm talking about today, used to be a barn of my great grandfather. It was also a research on the family history, and you know the project at Kythira. Kythira is an island below Peloponnese, where the Cretan, Ionian, and Aegean Sea meets. Have you been there?
No, but I know.
You know.
About Greek geography.
Ah, nice, nice. So you understand the location. And the thing is that while doing this research, I had to deal with family conflicts and stuff. For example, in order for my father to acquire this asset was very difficult because all his relatives, back then, immigrants to Australia mainly, they didn't want the son of a family to take, of a daughter actually, to take any of the property of the family, because he didn't carry the last name of his great grandfather. So same here, same here.
Very important thing, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Very interesting cover.
Yeah.
Straight carries.
So this was the first gender-based discrimination while I was doing this project. And of course, there was another thing that when we were having vacation at Kythira during August mostly with my parents, right across the house that we did the vacation was this ruin. This one, this is the ruin I restored. So while watching this ruin, viewing this ruin during the vacation, there was all this narrative about how beautiful it was and his past use and all this fact, putting the ruin in a pedestal and make me feel very intimidated on how to intervene it. And of course, there was a gap in history because back in the German occupation in the 1940s, all the family members were moved away from Kythira. And of course, this gap couldn't be covered in any way. So I started doing some research of my own. And the first thing that I found was this contract of my great grandfather buying the property back in the 1911. And way back before the era of GPS, this is the GPS of back in the time, handwritten. Because, you know, they described each part, they needed to describe the borders of the property. So trees or big stones embedded in the ground were describing in there. Here is the property. Actually, we can see from above the border line. The narrow part is where the family house, their urban house, let's say, because this village For Kythera, it's a big one. And they lived in the narrow part, and the wider territory was the part that they cultivated. They kept the domestic animals. They kept the harvesting, and here it doesn't move. Okay. No. So here is the drawing of the village. And here is the topographic diagram. Again, you can see here the house, the urban house, where they were spending the winter. At the summer, they moved, my family, great-grandfather and mother, moved with the family at a small house by the beach to have to swim and stuff.
Bottom arrow. Yeah, bottom arrow.
Maybe I did, but it doesn't work for some reason. No.
Maybe.
Oh, okay, now it needs more to force it more.
Yeah.
So while starting, a dilemma was coming up, either to maintain the ruin as it is, so in any time to when we see it or be there, have the sense of its distance from the past as a part of it, or how to intervene it. And here is the western facade of the building, where you can notice that the beam above the main entrance is missing because someone has stolen it during the time of its decay. And because of this beam was removed, the facade was falling down. And you will see in the next pictures how it played some role for my designs to maintain some of this trauma, let's say, of the building. So here are three criteria of how we can actively understand the past. The first criterion is the criterion of place, historical continuity of the built environment, and as it can be described in the morphology of the whole village, where it is the context of the building. The criterion of type, cultural roots, or of forms with functional or symbolic content, the square, the town, the hall, the school, the house. Can you recognize the picture on the right? It's from a movie. Can you?
I know the movie, Dogville.
Yeah. So
When you get crazy as me today, then sometimes you get something unexpected. Usually I didn't recognize.
So on the left, there is pretty much the view from the barn in the village of Potamos. And I choose to show this picture because in this picture, you can see that the institutional buildings, the church and the town hall are very dominant. So in a way, in this view, you have also a symbolic depiction of the village, which is actually the connection with the Dogville picture, where we can see the layout of the village and every archetypical, only the archetypical remnants, not any unnecessary morphology of architecture. Everything is stripped out of unnecessary things, only the symbols. And the last criterion, the criterion of principles, also the theoretical and the practical ones, meaning that when you go to the island, you have access to specific techniques, materials, and technicians. And here we can see the exact view of the village from the barn and how evolved the cell of the building was evolved. And one radical intervention about which I will talk later is this big window. And it was quite radical because of this elaborated stonework of the building in the past. So, the history of architectural forms. This is a quote from Deleuze: "The myth that connects forms deprives the work of the possibility to say something of its own." But of course, the morphology is something that can be archetypical. So we can see the drawing of a child, we can see the mausoleum of Kyrus, and also this Ivan Mestrovic, of course, you know, all of you, Ivan Mestrovic, Avala Mountain in Belgrade. And the archetypical form is there without the size having anything to do with it. It can be a small, a bigger, much bigger. And here is the barn after the restoration. So let's see how institutions and ethical adherence to the historicity, to the adherence of the historicity of the built environment, meaning that also the authorities put in a pedestal the old, let's say in general. The authorities, in order to give you with less bureaucracy the permission to do the restoration, you only have to prove that the building is before 1955. It was built before 1955. So here is the immunity of time, also demanded from the authorities in order to tell you, okay, go ahead, do the restoration, but maintain most of it untangled. But it legally exists if it is existing before 1955. And here is the first land registry conducted during the Greek regime in the 1970s. And here you can see little numbers on the territories, different ownerships. And here is the list with the names. And here is the second gender-based discrimination, because all the lists are men, the owners of the land. Here is the technical report, which I conducted based on the elements that I showed you before, in order to prove that this is an old building, so I can take more easily the permission to start the renovation. The worship of the living ruin, we talked about it, and how, although I don't demonstrate that the ruin should be adored. On the other hand, the stonework, the trace of the stonework, was actually an armature for the new form. And this is the facade now, how I kept a lot of openings in the western facade. Actually, today, when I was in Sveti Stefani, so Saint Stefan,
Santos Stefanos.
Agios Stefanos,
Agios Stefanos.
Agios Stefanos, I witnessed quite similar. Yes. While you're heading to the fortress, to the island, you can see a similar construction. And here we can see how also old parts of buildings can be embedded in new constructions. And this, we call it xerolithia. Xero is dry stonework, stone wall. Is very traditional at Kythira.
We call it the same in Serbian, Montenegrin,
Sukosi, dry stone.
Yeah.
Dry.
Without the connection between the stones. Without concrete.
All Mediterranean, especially the European part, has this.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Very practical.
And a conference 2 years ago, or 1.5 years ago, about dry stone.
Really?
It was a big national conference.
Wow.
Participants from Croatia.
Wow, nice.
I hear a book about it.
Yes, please. Yes. And here is the interior of the barn, converted to a house actually, while the big frame in the front, in the main facade, creates actually a moving image which changes during the day of the village and the nature there. Visual touch, the tactile dimension of vision, the two sides of the same coin. In the left picture, we can see the final part of the rendering of the house. They used, I don't know if you have the same also, we put some dust color inside the mortar, and we color the houses with the color inside the mortar. So you need to keep notes on the proportions of the color while making the, yeah, because you forget and you can see that we noted also 1, 2, 3.
Not to get the rainbow.
So, okay, well, you can see this picture. Okay, this one is while we were doing the restoration. We have already installed the new roof and we are interventing in the floor. This is from the past, before the restoration. You can see here some remnants of a corrugated, really rusted, corrugated metal sheet. This actually was used to roof the barn, which I restored actually. I put new ones. And here we can see how time also from the outside changes the form of the building, because shiny and new, when the sun reflects on the roof, it creates a very specific outline of the building. But when the cloudy weather comes, the roof dissolves into the background. It's like no roof is existing. And this is an example from Francis Bacon, where the form is dissolved to the background. Some pictures from the restoring. On the right, there is a picture from a traditional house. On the left is how it was simply remade without vertical beams. It needed a more large and extended central beam, but it left the space inside empty. Some other traditional elements, in order to keep open and to confirm that it's safe, this big window, which is heavy and a little bit fragile, let's say, I used this metal rod, which is also an old traditional. It is called there kodomiri, the name of this kodomiri. It's just a name. I don't know why they call it like this.
We have the same with the
Yeah.
You have,
traditional.
wow, nice.
Mhm.
And here we can see another element from the past and how it is preserved inside. This is kuluka, and kuluka it means I'm tying. I'm tying. So this embedded stone was embedded actually in the stone of the building. Was used, has a hole on it, and it was used to tie the animals inside. So I maintained it. This is the one.
It's usually on in the basement, the lowest level of the house.
Yes, of course, yes. And also you can see this kind of stuff in the outside. This is also kuluka from the outside. Kuka is house.
Hook, I know, like hook.
Ah. I will see later the etymology might have some connection. I don't know. So-
They have learned that the word chinia, which is small ball, comes actually from Persian. And it means in Persian, it means some ball from China.
Small. Chinia, do you have it? Because it came with empire probably.
Yeah.
No, we don't. So anyway, this kind of stuff inside the space are not in use actually, but there is a symbolic and also a sense that they create inside the space. Specifically, this one reminds me of the movie of Roman Polanski, Repulsion, if you remember, in the corridor. The corridor starts. So it's a kind of elements that create some kind of a dramatization inside the space, all together with the history of the building. I will show you. How much time do I have?
If you need 15 minutes, 10 minutes.
Really? Okay, so let's stay more in this picture. The floor is made with a mixed technique from the traditional mortar and also the new, where we use some different base to create this flooring. And these small things you can see inside the mortar, we took some sand from the beach, we washed it, and yeah, small pebble, actually. It's a small tiny pebble. And on the right, you can see the old bricks, because actually at the same time, I was renovating the family house I showed you before, and we demolished the walls inside because we're in a bad condition, and I used the bricks to do some stuff inside the bar, and I did the kitchen. I used it for the kitchen. Some pictures from Repulsion, because I wanted to show you how the elements inside the space, how big or small they are, can play some role in the sense that you have, if the space is big or small, and even the variety of the materials, because this is a very small place. This is actually 50 square meters big. It's very small, but the variety, the vast variety of materials used inside creates this sense, this sense of an extended space. It changes the feeling inside when you are inside. And of course, this big opening that I showed you before, this big window, from the one hand, it creates a view of the village, but on the other hand, it has another effect. It opens up the main facade like a live stage. The private life becomes more extrovert to the rest of the village, because in the night, everyone can see you.
In the Netherlands, they do that.
Yes, exactly. As you know, yes, this is from the Netherlands. Yes, this is from Amsterdam.
Yeah.
This is Frank Fulle artwork at the 7th edition of a lighting festival at Amsterdam. When you are in the canal, you can see this, let's say, window loading, because this moves the lights, and it becomes the private life becomes also a living stage. Yeah.
Do you know why they do that in Netherlands? Where it comes from?
It's in purpose.
Yeah.
It is. Why?
Because they were, I think, Calvinistic, so it has a religious root in former times, and they live a good life, and they have nothing to hide, so it can be open. I have part of family in Netherlands.
Wow.
They are Dutch, so I know that from them.
It's a demonstration that we have nothing to hide.
Yeah,
the opposite from the village.
Younger generation is putting some plants there, or some like vitrage. Yeah.
So it's something that changes now.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Because for Kythira and in Potamos, now only 800 people are living there, in the maybe less during the summer in the village. And in total, maybe 1,000 in the whole island, very few people on the island. So everyone knows what the neighbor does. So everyone wants to be more introvert, to hide, you know. And I will show you some pictures from the interior. This is the part that I was telling you before, that using beams more close to one another can give you the opportunity to exclude, to abstract the vertical ones, so you can use the mezzanine, have a mezzanine, and use the space. This is the kitchen, very simple, with the old bricks used. Inside this wardrobe, let's say wardrobe, it's not a wardrobe, it's the bathroom. It opens so you can use the space more. And this is the bathroom. where the mortar is the traditional one in here. And you can see that the beams of the mezzanine are the beams that are taken off from the roof of the old house of the family house that I was renovating at the same time. I recycle them, actually. So one of the beams, because this old family house was also renovated from the 1970s, one of the beams has the signature and the date of the technician of back then, and I maintained it. I have it in a spot where someone can see that. Also, the stable was made from the wood from the other roof of the family house. And I want to close my lecture with this quote. You know this?
I love Faulkner.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a quote from Walter Benjamin. He's talking about Angelus Novus of Paul Klee, 1920. It's a very progressive artwork of its time. His face is turned towards the past, but a storm is blowing from paradise. It has got caught in his wings with such violence that the angel can no longer close them. The storm irresistibly propels him into the future to which his back is turned, while the pile of debris before him grows skyward. So it's like the wind is forcing him to go to the future, but his back is still turned to the past. Thank you so much.